Hi, I'm Quentin Schultz, co-author of the book, the cover of which you see on the screen right there, An Essential Guide to Interpersonal Communication. Interpersonal, person to person, although we would include our relationship with God, with other people, and our relationship with ourselves. Interpersonal communication. Diane and I wrote this book for people like you that want to improve your interpersonal relationships. And it's written from a Christian perspective, which has just been a joy for us to do because we're both Christian folks, have known each other over the years, and we're good friends. And in fact, this chapter is about celebrating friendship. It's the concluding chapter, not a chapter with a number. There are 8 chapters in the book, plus this conclusion, which in a sense gets to the nub of the matter of the whole book, to celebrate friendship, to do friendship, to form it, to enjoy it, to promote it. Friendship. Wow, what a thing friendship is. It's amazing. So, thank you so much for considering what I have to say here, and you can get in touch with me later. I'll talk more about that. Friendship is the greatest of worldly goods, says C.S. Lewis. Certainly to me, it is the chief happiness of life. This is from page 119 in our book. Friendship is the greatest of worldly goods. The chief happiness of life. Is that stunning? Friendship? That is a very high view of friendship. And now you get a little inkling of why we might put this as part of the concluding section of the book for interpersonal communication. Friendship. Today when we talk about making a friend, what do we think about? Well, a lot of people think about Facebook. You make a friend on Facebook. Well, that's more like an acquaintance. In fact, it's not even quite an acquaintance. It can often be just somebody out there in internet land that we're somehow connected with. A friend. Facebook friendship does not even touch on the biblical view of friendship, which is so deep and rich and wonderful. So let's talk about that more deeply biblical root toward the kind of friendship that leads to relationships that we flourish and we enjoy and we delight in. And then we don't have to worry about unfriending people, defriending people, whether or not to friend somebody on Facebook. Do with that what you will. But whatever you do in your life, make sure you have the kind of friends that we're talking about here that you form through interpersonal communication. Maybe a little bit with using Facebook as well. So here's Jesus. My command is this, Jesus says. From John 15, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything that I have learned from my Father, I have made known to you. From John 15. Go back and read that in context, if you would, for what's happening here with Jesus and him saying this and why it's so important for his disciples at this point. He's going to be leaving them shortly. And what is he leaving them with? The statement that they're friends, that Jesus has made this friendship possible. Sometimes with my friends, when I'm writing them an email or sending them a text message, I conclude it with saying, Quinn, your John 15 friend. To say we're friends in Christ. And this is a deep friendship. It's a friendship that only God could make happen. Notice in this friendship that Jesus describes here is sacrifice. If you do what I command, lay down your life for one's friends. Friendship is it's sacrificial giving. It's giving everything from attention to someone which is important, and listening to them, to giving them the shirt off our back. It is taking our time and dedicating our time to help them in their life, to build them up, to encourage them. You see, friendship is a phenomenal relationship. It is a relationship of deep service, deep love. It is a relationship that is the relationship that begins to define all other good relationships, because God calls us to love others by giving of ourselves for them. As we said earlier in the chapter on listening, we listen to get to know other people so that we can love them. We don't love people in the abstract. We listen to them to determine their needs. Maybe they have a simple need to be encouraged today. Another chapter on encouragement, so we encourage them. So maybe what they really need is something physical in their life, a place to stay, a place to live. Maybe what they need is a new computer, a new phone. They can't afford them. They're desperate. They need a job, and they need help finding a job. They need a ride to the interview for the job. All of this, you see, is sacrificial stuff, which creates deep and abiding friendship, with God looking down on it and saying, the people who act this way, whose lives speak this kind of sacrificial love, are my friends and I am their friends. We are friends together. Isn't this amazing? And the gift of communication enables us to, if you will, pull this off. Here's the secret. I'm going to pull this out of the chapter, a little secret for you that you can apply right now. Something that we've lost. How do we get friendships going? We get friendships going through natural conversation. If you want to develop deeper relationships, if you want relationships of what we call in the book shalom, where you flourish, relationship with God, with other people, with yourself, how do you do this? How do you do this? You don't just go down and sit down with someone and say, hey, let's be a friend. If you want to be a friend of your child, you don't go to your child and say, okay, now come on, we're gonna sit down and be friends. It happens through what we can call natural conversation. This is the way God made us. Years ago, I was intrigued by how do you form strong families. And so I did surveys of families to write a book. The book was titled Winning Your Kids Back from the Media. And as I was doing the research for this book, trying to figure out what activities family members engaged in to develop close relationships, I found out about this natural conversation that comes out of our natural activities that promotes friendship, deep friendships. And it wasn't what I expected. So what people said to me, that conversation really sprung out of something like you see there first, games. Not the kind of game where you're bound in time on a video game, you got to keep going and you can't communicate with anybody. Now there are video games where you do communicate with people. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a solo game in time where you don't have any time to talk. It's not going to naturally promote relationship. On the other hand, I dare you to play Scrabble, or to play Monopoly, or to play Apples to Apples, or some kind of board game, and not talk with the people that you're playing the game with. You will talk with them. Conversation will naturally come up. It's beautiful. Second, you see walks down here. I talked in an earlier video on encouragement about the importance of my walks with my son in my life and how our relationship grew as a result of those walks together. And my wife and I are bird watchers, by the way, so we go out for these long walks out in the middle of nowhere, with the binoculars looking at birds. And it was one of the activities that we developed to help bring our marriage together, to bond us together more strongly by doing it together. And we both like to be outside, and now we both love birds. And so we do it, and it's a great thing for us. Vacations, travel. So many people said to me that as families, especially taking vacations together and traveling together, they would naturally converse with one another. And out of that natural conversation would come the development of deeper relationships, of eating together. You know, we talk about meals and the importance of meals together, eating. I think it's true. We have to protect time. In my family, when our children were younger, we said we're always, unless we have some other activity we have to go to, a sports event for the kids or something, we're always going to eat meals together around the table, and there's not going to be a TV within sight. Those were the days when we tended to watch too much TV. Now, of course, it's the phone and zapping around through the internet and so on. So we protected meals together. Cooking and cleanup. Cooking and cleanup. Do you want to know one of the things, the technologies that interfered with the development of family relationships over the years? Get this, the dishwasher. The dishwasher. Why? Because when people used to have to do the dishes together, part of the cleanup, they would be around there in the kitchen together and they would talk about things. And they would open up. How is this going in your life, or that going, or to the kids? What's happening in school? Or I used to say to my kids all the time at meals, by the way, an open-ended question, what happened today that was funny in school? That was a good way to open up. But the cleanup, the cooking together and so on, and things like fishing and knitting and so forth. There are many, many things that we could say are natural communication providers. The communication comes naturally out of them, and these are the things to pursue. This is one secret from our book on an essential guide to interpersonal communication that we want to stress to develop real friendship in all of your relationships. Okay, go for it. You can do this. Find out what things people are interested in and do those things with them, whatever those are. And you'll find that the relationship will begin to grow naturally. Friendship with God and others is a calling. Consider this. I believe it. I wrote a little book on living the Christian life, and in there I talk about the things that we're called to by virtue of the fact that we are following Jesus. The title of the book is Here I Am. Now what in the world should I be doing? But here I am. In other words, calling. God calls us. And I believe that God calls us to friendship. God calls us to friendship with Him, with other people, and with ourselves, to be a good friend to ourselves. Callings are not just occupations or professions. That's what we think of today. We have made callings into an idolatry of work. Some of our callings, like friendship, is a calling we all inherit by virtue of God's claim on our lives. Okay? His friendship with us. When we become a friend of Jesus, we've got the calling to be a friend back and to be a friend with others and to be a friend to ourselves. And to the extent that we can, to use this gift of communication, especially natural conversation, to develop friendships. Because in those natural conversations, we find out about each other and how best to love each other, to sacrifice for one another. The true sign of friendship, that kind of sacrificial relationship. C.S. Lewis said, sacrifice almost everything to live where you can be near your friends. Whoa! Brother C.S. Lewis, I don't know about this. I don't know how to think about this in today's high-tech social media world. Sacrifice almost everything to live where you can be near friends. Let's say that there's some truth in this, that often the people we end up being the closest with, and we want to be the closest with, are those that we want proximity for, geographic proximity. And so think about this in your own life. If you can't be near those that you want to have the best friendship with, the deepest friendship, think about creating the friendships with those that you are close by. Doing it, using what we discuss, Diane, in the book to help you do it. You can do it. And God will bless you through it. And it will expand. And you will become models of friendship. and others will look at you in that friendship and say, I want that too. In fact, it can infect a whole church through small groups. So we're talking about the importance of friendship, something to be deeply celebrated in this final chapter of the book I wrote with Diane Badzinski titled An Essential Guide to Interpersonal, Person-to-Person Communication. Building great relationships with faith, skill, and virtue in the age of social media. I hope these videos have been helpful for you. You've gotten some tips. Remember, each video just touches on part of the content of the chapter. Chapters are short, pithily written, interesting, lots of examples and illustrations, lots of other great C.S. Lewis quotes, that rascal who always pushes us along to greater faithfulness. I love him. I love him. I thank God for him. I wish he were alive today and I could be his friend, but at least by reading his books, I feel like a friend of his. And I hope you'll be a friend of ours, Diane and myself, by reading this book, viewing the videos maybe with others, studying the book in your church or otherwise, and buying a copy of it and studying it in the best possible sense to celebrate this gift of communication that God gives us for interpersonal relationships. Isn't it a marvelous thing? Really, really a marvelous thing. It's not like a Facebook friendship. It's so much deeper. The well is deep for the kind of friendship that God is calling us to. So accept the calling and live for it, won't you? You'll be blessed by it. Thank you.